Hello again, everyone. Thank you for joining me here on Bills2Cents.com as I preview the Breeders' Cup Classic, the marquee event of the two-day weekend festivities at the Breeders' Cup, a $5 million race to determine who is the best that there is. Race took a bit of a hit before I get into handicapping. There was a scratch announced on Thursday. Ron the Greek, who absolutely crushed the field in the Jockey Club Gold Cup at Belmont Park at the end of September, is scratched from this race. Trainer Bill Mott said he has a quarter crack. It's not that serious of an injury. He probably will run again, but it's just too soon to the Breeders' Cup, and they will have to scratch. So no Ron the Greek in this race, and we are now down to a field of 11 in this race. A lot of storylines in this race as well, and I think a lot of it has to center around Game On Dude, who hasn't lost a race since last year in the Breeders' Cup Classic. He did not have a good start in this race. He finished 7th, but he's recovered nicely. He's gone on to win all of his races leading up to the Breeders' Cup Classic again this year. Can he get it done at Santa Anita? And then you have Mucho Macho Man, who really seems to love being on the West Coast at Santa Anita. Won the Awesome Again Stakes last time out, going a mile and an eighth, and looked good doing it. Now, we know this horse wants no part of a wet track, but that shouldn't be the case on Saturday at Santa Anita. So he's a major player as well in here too. And also, how will the 3-year-olds fare in this race going up against their elders? Malice, who has been pretty consistent since winning the Belmont Stakes, just a recent second place finish to Ron the Greek in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. How will he do going up against older horses and a trip out west? Same can be said for Will Take Charge, who really, got going in that summer campaign at Saratoga, won the Pennsylvania Derby at Parks, and now faces older company for the first time. How will a horse like Will Take Charge do in a race like this? Lots of questions. Can flat out recover. He's been a very good horse, but he lost to Alpha at Saratoga over the summer. Didn't really run that great of a third in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. So can Bill Mott get redemption here in the Breeders' Cup Classic as his other horse, Ron the Greek, is scratched? It's just a fun race to talk about. So many different angles looking at it as we preview the race. And I'll go through the horses here one by one, and we'll dig a little bit deeper. Number 1 is Last Gunfighter. For trainer Chad Brown, 20-1 in the morning line. Not going to talk you off a long shot, but I think this horse shows that he has distance limitations when he ran in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He was a wise guy horse for me in that race, going a mile and a quarter for the first time. He did run 5th, but he didn't seem to care for it. And again, to be fair, that Belmont track was just awfully good to horses in on the rail. So maybe you throw this last effort out for Last Gunfighter. He's going to be a price in here, so you will get paid if he runs very well, but I will look elsewhere in this race. Number 2 is Painter, and again, what a story he is. I feel like I say this every time he runs. Very, very sick a while ago, and now he's back, not only living, but running in the Grade 1 $5 million Breeders' Cup Classic. It's just a phenomenal story. But I don't know what to think of this horse. His form, he's run good races, but he's not the same horse that he was before he got sick. And I don't know if he can recover against a field this tough in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Number 3 is Plantor, a European horse. To me, when I look at all the Breeders' Cup races, I really take the Europeans into consideration on the turf. Don't know what to expect from this horse who is trying dirt at a very tough field for the first time. 20-1 in the morning line, so the Europeans have a long shot in here, but I'm going to stick to the Americans in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Number 4 is Marino, and Marino, again, a 3-year-old going up against elders. Looked good in the Travers, took advantage of a speed favoring track, ran second to Will Take Charge, and what I thought came up as a relatively weak Pennsylvania Derby. His post position draw does hurt him. He draws inside to other speed horses like Game On Dude. You should be getting a good price with him at 15-1, but if he goes out there winging, I don't expect him to hold this lead going a mile and a quarter against this field. I know there's been other storylines surrounding this horse, and more specifically his trainer Eric Guillot, that he's apologized for the allegations of Will Take Charge and jockey Luis Saez using a buzzer in the Travers, but I just getting to the horse Marino, I just don't think this horse can wire this field going this distance at Santa Anita. Number 5, another European, is Declaration of War, 10-1 in the morning line. Another horse that has been running mainly on turf, now switches to dirt. The horse is 7 of 12, with one second place finish and one third place finish, so usually on the board. But again, I'm going to stick to the American horses in here, and if the Europeans win this race, then I will not be having a winning ticket, that's for sure. Number 6 is Mucho Macho Man. Again, a horse that really seems to flourish at Santa Anita. And because the race is there, I have to use him a little bit in here. I don't know if he'll win the race, but I'll definitely be using him in the exotics. And I think he's a big question mark in terms of multi-race wagers. But if you have the room on your ticket, I would be using him at 5-1 in the morning line. Number 7 is Fort Larned. Now, Fort Larned is a play against for me. I know he won this race last year holding off Mucho Macho Man. I just don't like the fact that he didn't have a good summer campaign. He should have won the Whitney. He was the favorite in the Whitney. And not only did he didn't win, but he finished off the board. He was 5th in that race. He did win the Homecoming Classic at Churchill Downs, but he was supposed to win. That wasn't that big. That wasn't that strong of a field. I don't know where the odds could go anywhere with this horse at 6-1 in the morning line, but I don't want to take him in here in this race. He is a play against for me in the BC Classic. Number 8 is Malice, the 3-year-old. Now, he's been very, very good since the Belmont Stakes. Just did lose to Ron the Greek in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but now he's making his first trip out west against older horses. 10-1 in the morning line. So you're going to get a nice chunk of money if this horse can come through. The big question here is, how will he fare against the other 3-year-olds, I think. I don't know if a 3-year-old can win this race, but I think most would agree that Malice right now is the top 3-year-old in training. If he can beat Will Take Charge and Marino in this race, I think he stamped himself as Eclipse Award champion, and maybe he already has. But I like him in terms. I think he's the best 3-year-old in this race. But with that being said, I like the older horses in here. Malice, maybe he'll finish 4th in this very difficult spot, but it's very interesting to watch how he will run against the other 3-year-olds as well. Will Take Charge and Marino. Number 9, Game On Dude, 8-5 morning line favorite. He's rattled off 6 straight wins since his loss last year in the Breeders' Cup Classic. He's at Santa Anita. He's at a place where he absolutely loves, and I know a lot of storylines will be surrounding the fact that this horse is partially owned by Joe Torre. I don't necessarily like to chalk it out in these big time races where there's so many enticing odds all over the tote board, but I just think Game On Dude is a step above these horses, and the fact that he gets to run this race in his backyard says a lot. So I'm going to put Game On Dude in top in here, and hoping that Mike Smith could be in for an absolutely great weekend. He's got Royal Delta in the distaff, Game On Dude in the Classic. He's got a whole bunch of other mounts in the Breeders' Cup as well, so he could be in for quite the next 2 days. Number 10 is Will Take Charge, a horse that has really come into his own since the summer. A very respectable second place finish in the Jim Dandy, wins the Travers by a nose, wins the Pennsylvania Derby, and now he goes up against the older horses in here in this race. Now, he is prone to running into some traffic problems. We saw the Kentucky Derby. He had some traffic issues. This is a field. This isn't the biggest field that he's running, obviously, but it's an 11-horse field, and there can be some traffic-prone trips for some horses in here. But hopefully Luis Saez can get Will Take Charge a clean trip in this race. You will get a good price on him, as you will a lot of the horses in this race. But again, I'm going to go Game On Dude and Mucho Macho Man as my top two horses in this race. Will take charge. I think we'll run a respectable race in here. I can see him finishing maybe fifth or sixth in the middle of the pack, but I just don't think he can contend for that win honors in this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. And number 12 is Flat Out. With the scratch of Around the Greek, Flat Out will move in one spot in the starting gate. Flat Out, I love the horse. He shows up all the time. I just don't like the fact that he hasn't been able to win in his last two races, and maybe that's too critical of me. But he's 12-1, and for a horse that usually hits the board to be 12-1 is a very good price. I don't know. I mean, you go back to the Breeders' Cup Classic last year, he did run third to Fort Larned and Mucho Macho Man. The West Coast trip shouldn't be that much of a factor if he hit the board last year. And it would be nice to see Bill Mott win this race, especially with what happened with Front of the Greek having to scratch him out of this race. But I just think Game On Dude and Mucho Macho Man are a cut above these horses for the win and the place honors. I will put Malice third. I like him enough to put him in the money in this tough field. So I will go 9 Game On Dude, 6 Mucho Macho Man. Malice is got all these papers in front of me here. Malice is 8, and then I will put Flat Out for 4th. Flat Out is too consistent for me to not have in my top 4. So again, Game On Dude on top, Mucho Macho Man 2nd for me, Malice, the 3-year-old 3rd, and Flat Out 4th. Thank you very much for joining me here as I preview the Breeders' Cup Classic. Have a great weekend with the Breeders' Cup, and for the rest of my thoughts and analysis on the Breeders' Cup, please check out bills2cents.com. Thanks for watching, and best of luck at the track.